Shalom all. There are breaking developments on multiple fronts from southern Lebanon to Gaza, from Washington to Kabul. We expect, based on reports over the weekend, that the hostages should be released anytime between now and Monday at noon, though it is likely that it will be on the tail end of the permitted time. President Trump is due to land in Israel on Monday at 9:30 in the morning for a 3 to 5 hour visit, including speaking at the Knesset. From there, he will fly to Egypt for a peace conference with Arab countries, as well as some Europeans like the German Chancellor and President Macron. And even Iran was invited. But do you know who wasn't invited? Israel. Let's look at Lebanon. Israel's Air Force carried out a major overnight operation in southern Lebanon, striking and destroying large quantities of Hezbollah's engineering equipment along the Masila road. According to reports, 4 hangars packed with heavy vehicles were completely wiped out. Lebanese media confirm 1 killed and 5 wounded. The IDF announced that the operation was led by Northern Command and targeted infrastructure where Hezbollah had stored engineering machinery used to rebuild its terror network in southern Lebanon. Lebanese sources now estimate that about 300 engineering vehicles were destroyed, an economic loss worth tens of millions of shekels. Officials in Beirut fear that now, with the Gaza war officially over, Israel might turn its focus northward to pressure the Lebanese government and army to finally disarm Hezbollah. In response, Hezbollah issued a statement, notably without any direct threat, calling on the Lebanese government to act. They urged Beirut to take a strong diplomatic and political stance, to raise its voice in Arab and international forums, and to file an urgent complaint to the United Nations Security Council demanding that Israel stop what they called its violations. Hezbollah declared that this Israeli attack cannot continue and that Lebanon must shoulder its national responsibility to protect and defend its people. This is very interesting that Hezbollah has moved from threats to telling us that the government in Lebanon is the one responsible. We'll see how that develops. Meanwhile, there's significant developments involving the United States and Gaza. The commander of the U.S. Central Command, Admiral Brad Cooper, released a statement after visiting the Gaza Strip with Israel's Chief of Staff Zamir. He announced that CENTCOM is establishing a new civil-military coordination center to support the stabilization of Gaza under President Trump's direction. He said, and I quote, "America's sons and daughters answer the call to bring peace to the Middle East under the guidance of the Supreme Commander. At this historic moment, this great effort will be achieved without boots on the ground." In other words, the U.S. military will create a regional headquarters based not in Gaza but in Israel to supervise the implementation of the ceasefire and the Trump plan. This mirrors an earlier American model from the ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon, when a U.S. command post was established in Beirut to oversee compliance. This time, however, the base will operate from Israeli soil. Effectively, the U.S. is now playing an active role in stabilizing 2 fronts of the recent war, Gaza and Lebanon. Let's briefly jump from Lebanon to Syria. There are clashes between Kurdish troops and Jolani soldiers in the city of Haleb, that is Aleppo, and Israeli flags were spotted among the troops. I hope that the U.S. backing that the Kurds had in the past will hold, and they will not get massacred like the Druze and the Alawites. Speaking of the Druze, I saw a report that the Druze renamed the area east of Israel from Jabal al-Arab, that is Mount Arab, to Jabal al-Bashan, Mount Bashan, using the Hebrew biblical name of the area, a move that infuriated non-Druze Arabs in Syria. Al Jazeera tonight published details from a document outlining the exact stages of how the Trump peace plan will be implemented. According to this document, Hamas must conduct the release of hostages quietly, with no public ceremonies or media coverage. All live-in hostages are to be freed between Sunday and Monday at noon, along with the return of bodies whenever possible. Hamas must remain in constant contact with the Joint Operations Room that monitors the agreement to coordinate timing, ensure synchronization, and address any issues that arise during the handover. There will also be a dedicated mechanism to exchange information on the hostages between Hamas and Israel, facilitated by mediators and the Red Cross. The actual transfer will take place through the Red Cross vehicles carrying both the hostages and the released prisoners, and they will only move after all procedures are completed. An Egyptian delegation accompanied by Red Cross representatives will visit the Ofer and Ksiot prisons to verify the names of the Palestinian prisoners scheduled for release. Obviously, we don't really trust the Red Cross very much, as they've been pretty useless and did not keep their commitments, did not visit any of the Israeli hostages, did not bring them medicine, did not report on any of their conditions, and so on and so forth. But we'll see how this goes. The agreement also details the humanitarian situation. The United Nations agencies and other organizations will take charge of distributing the aid. At least 600 trucks a day are to enter Gaza immediately after the deal is signed. That's more than 4,200 trucks every week, carrying food, goods for the private sector, and 50 fuel and gas tankers as well. The Rafah crossing will operate in both directions, in line with the agreement reached on January 19th this year. Priority will be given to food, medical supplies, and shelter materials. Free movement for trucks will be guaranteed from north to south along the Al-Rashid and Salah ad-Din roads. Once again, we'll see how that plays out. Further stages of the plan include bringing in heavy equipment for rubble removal, expanding refugee camps to accommodate displaced families, and ensuring basic living conditions. Coordinations will be made to restart Gaza's main power plant and secure its fuel supply. Reconstruction will also begin on water and sewage systems. Hospitals, bakeries, and major roads will also need to be rebuilt. Inside Gaza, there are reports of heavy clashes in Jabalia between Hamas fighters and a local militia that, according to Hamas, previously cooperated with Israel. I understand that 17 people of the local militia have been killed. At the same time, Al-Shabaab's militia in the south seems to still be operating fully as it did before. According to the BBC, at this same time, Hamas has mobilized 7,000 of its former security personnel to retake control of areas vacated by the IDF. It has appointed 5 new governors to the regions, all with military background, some of them former commanders in its own armed wing. Beyond Gaza, moving on, anti-Israel activists have begun targeting Maria Corina Machado, who, as you probably all know, yesterday won the Nobel Peace Prize, which of course should have gone to Donald Trump for his work over the past year and before in his previous term with the Abraham Accords and so on. But the Nobel Prizes clearly are political, left liberal people giving themselves prizes. Even though Miss Machado is not necessarily left liberal, they couldn't give it to Donald Trump. Though the anti-Semites and anti-Israels dug up old tweets from May 2021 during Operation Shomer Chomot, in which she called on the West to stand with Israel, describing Israel as a true ally of liberty, as well as another one encouraging Venezuela to move its embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Since those tweets surfaced, she's been facing a coordinated smear campaign from anti-Israel accounts. Now, turning to other regional updates. I reported in July that in addition to the French-Saudi recognition efforts scheduled for the UN in September, Russia was to host a large pan-Arabic meeting in October to try to present themselves as a superpower with influence in the region. So, an update on that. President Putin has cancelled the summit with Arab leaders that was scheduled for October 15th, reportedly because almost none of them intended to attend. Well, at the same time, the Washington Post reports that despite public condemnation of Israel's actions in Gaza, several Arab militaries have quietly deepened security cooperation with Israel over the past 3 years. The meetings were organized by the U.S. Central Command and have taken place in Bahrain, Egypt, Jordan, and Qatar, with discussions on forming a new regional security model, kind of a Middle Eastern NATO, that could include Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates as well. The driving force behind these talks is the shared concern over Iran. Although cooperation temporarily stalled after Israel's airstrike on Qatar in September, these ties could now play a central role in monitoring the emerging ceasefire in Gaza. And in Europe, Austria has warned that it may withdraw from hosting the 2026 Eurovision if Israel is excluded from the contest. Government officials said it would be unacceptable to hold the event without Israel's participation, emphasizing that music should unite, not divide. And this comes after Germany said that it would withdraw from participating if Israel was excluded. So this is kind of a new wave after the few weeks, few months of condemnation and boycotts of Israel. Now we can see also that weapon embargoes are being reconsidered or canceled after Israel and Hamas signed the first part of Trump's plan. Beyond the Middle East, there's fighting on another front. Along the Afghan-Pakistani border, Pakistani fighter jets struck Taliban-controlled areas inside Afghanistan, killing around 20 people. The goal was to eliminate the Pakistani Taliban leader, believed to be hiding there. Heavy clashes have since erupted all along the Durand Line, with Taliban forces attacking Pakistani positions in Kunar, Nangarhar, and Helmand provinces. Several Pakistani military units were reportedly forced to retreat. And as I have done on occasion, I'll take this opportunity to quote Golda Meir, who would have said, "Good luck to both sides." And finally, back to Israel. Analysts are debating the meaning of the new agreement. Commentators on the right argue that it's not yet time to celebrate. They say the job is not finished because Hamas has not accepted Trump's outline and refused to disarm, and even have claimed that they've received guarantees that the war will not resume. While Hamas's military power has been severely reduced, it still commands tens of thousands of armed fighters. Critics warn that Hamas is like a cancerous growth. It can always return and spread unless it is completely removed. Militarily, restarting the fighting now would be easier, since there are no hostages left in Hamas's hands, assuming the hostage deal goes according to plan. But politically, with all major players, and especially President Trump, signaling that for them the war is over, Israel faces an extremely complicated situation. The right-wing camp says its mission is now to apply counter-pressure on Prime Minister Netanyahu, reminding him that there can be no true victory without the complete collapse of Hamas. They insist that nothing, not the release of hostages, not normalization with Saudi Arabia, can replace that goal. They stress that eliminating Hamas is not an act of revenge, but a matter of national security. So this is the state of the region as it currently is. A fragile calm in Gaza, escalating tensions in Lebanon, shifting alliances across the Middle East, and a world struggling to understand what this peace really means. So with that, I bid you farewell. continue to pray for Israel and the hostages, for their return and their recovery, for their families, for Netanyahu to keep standing in all the pressure that he's under, and for all of us here at Netivyah. We are still supporting our troops in Gaza, in Syria, in Lebanon. And if you'd like to be part of that, feel free to read more. God bless you all. Shalom.